introduce myself with a little bit of feedback. My name is Ben Arden. I'm in the Industry Analysis Division of the Media Bureau. We have the esteemed pleasure of handling the Biennial 323 filing window. We've got a lot to get covered today, but before we get started, I want to introduce our Bureau Chief, Bill Lake, who will be giving some opening remarks, and then we'll dive right in.
Great, thank you, Ben. I'd just like to thank everyone attending today and joining us via webcast. Whether you're a first-time filer or here for a refresher course, we welcome you and we look forward to helping you make the 323 filing process as smooth and easy as possible. Filing the Biennial Ownership Report is an important undertaking. The data you provide is of critical importance to the Commission, particularly with respect to our diversity initiatives. And it serves as a building block for all research on ownership diversity in the broadcast industry. This is why it's extremely important that all stations file their reports on time and that the reports are accurate and complete. I don't have to tell anyone on this webcast that broadcasting provides a vital service to local communities and that Americans benefit from diverse voices in broadcasting. However, minority and women owners are underrepresented in the broadcast industry. The Commission has taken steps to promote ownership diversity, and we look forward to continuing that work. Accurate and complete ownership data will be the bedrock for our analysis of our existing and future initiatives. I'll now turn things over to our expert staff, Jake and Jessica, who are here to explain the filing process and to answer your questions. We highly appreciate their hard work, and I'm confident that they will be able to address any issues that you may have. Jake and Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Welcome, everybody. The aim of this presentation today is, of course, introduce new filers to the Form 323 and CDBS. I'm also addressing the more substantive and advanced filing issues for our more seasoned practitioners. So we ask that anyone who's a little more seasoned and more experienced, be a little patient with us as we address some more basic issues. And for those who are new to CDBS and 323, please don't be overwhelmed when we address more advanced concepts. What we'll be doing today is demonstrating the filing of a simple report, and we're going to discuss common filing issues and provide some filing tips as we make our way through it. For those that are both here today and those who are joining us via webcast, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. However, if you need clarification during our demonstration, please let us know and we'll be able to address that question. But again, if your question involves maybe a more lengthy response, please just hold that to the end. And for our friends who are joining us via webcast, you can email us at form323@fcc.gov, and we'll try to address your question during the Q&A session. If we can't get to your question, we'll do so at a later time. And by the way, we do have a pending rulemaking. We're unable to address any questions or issues that are raised in that rulemaking. Any other housekeeping? Okay. Some very basic filing issues here. First, what is the Biennial Form 323 and who files it? Commercial AM, FM, full power TV, low power TV, and Class A stations, and those entities with attributable interest in those stations are filing that report. When is it filed? It's no accident that we're having this session today. It's filed every 2 years, and the window opens next week. That's October 1, and closes December 2nd. We're assuming that the government will be indeed open on October 1. I want to get everyone reacquainted with our 323 webpage, which I have up on the screen here. I think this is a great launching pad for both our experienced filers and new filers. You can find answers to frequently asked questions here and common 323 filing errors. We go through a list there. Of course, our contact information is here. There's a number of us that man that email address, so have no fear. If you send an email to that email address, we'll get back to you in a timely manner. Of course, we also put our 323 related updates on this page. Now, the Form 323 is filed in CDBS. So you can only file the form electronically, no paper copies. A good way to get to CDBS is, again, through this 323 webpage. If you just go, click here, CDBS, and account login. Of course, another good way is doing a web search, for FCC CDBS account login will bring you to this screen as well. A few basic points about CDBS accounts. We can't look up your ID. We can't reset your password, so please keep those close. But if you do lose that information, you can open as many CDBS accounts as you like. I'm sure many in the room here know that. So just quickly demonstrate creating a new account. What's that?
That's the real CDBS.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'll switch. So creating a new account in CDBS here, you'll just put in the name of the applicant. Here we'll just pretend we're filing on behalf of a licensee. Put in don't worry, we have a sample report prepared, so you won't watch me doing a lot of data entry today. This is pretty much the extent of it.
Nice try.
Okay. Oh, dropped. Awesome. Okay, and you can think a password is usually 8 characters, or most of 8, right? So we'll create an account here. Now again, this is where you see your account number. Make sure this is the only time it'll be given to you, so make sure you write this down. You click continue. Okay, and you've just created your CDBS account. One thing I really want to stress here before we move on to the Preform is account maintenance. This is where you put your contact information for both the applicant and then, of course, the contact for the representative filing the report. It is incredibly important to make sure that this is up to date. You want to check this really before you do anything else, before you open up a Form 323 and start your filing. And the reason for that is that this information here will be pre-filled into the form, and once that's pre-filled, you can't go in and edit it. All is not lost if you find at the end of creating your Form 323 and you see that the information in Section 1 is incorrect, that we can talk you through backing out, updating your account maintenance information, and copying into a new form. So there is a workaround, but I think it's just easier, particularly if you're a new filer or you use one account filing for multiple entities, to check this first. So we're going to update the account, return to main menu, and we'll just walk everyone quickly through the pre-form before we just go to our prepared sample report. So pre-form, this is, again, information that we'll select here will be populated into a Form 323. Form description, this is more for you as the filer. This helps you identify the report that is the reports that are in your account. So
And as a pro tip, you're going to, in many cases, end up with a lot of reports in one account. So come up with some convention about how you name things so that you'll be able to find them easily, because once you're into 30 reports in an account, it can get very confusing very quickly. Learned that the hard way myself.
So moving on, purpose. Of course, we have a number of options here. You'll choose biennial unless validation and resubmit or amendment are more appropriate options for you. Validate and resubmit, you'll be choosing this if there's been no changes whatsoever between your 2013 report and your 2015 report. So that is whatever your ownership information says October 1, 2015 is the same as it was on October 1, 2013.
So please do not use this option and then change things in the report. If you've got to change things, just start a new biennial by pre-filling from some earlier data, which we'll get into.
Right. So if this option is appropriate for you, you'd click B, and at the bottom here in the initial data, you would pre-fill from that earlier filing, and you'd put in the file number. The next three options, of course, are more related to non-biennial purposes. We're not going to get into that here. The last one is amendment to a previously filed ownership report. Jake,
Right.
did you want to touch on that?
There has been some confusion out there with people using the amendment function, thinking that what they'll do there is submit the next year's ownership information. When you amend a report, what you are doing is updating a filing that's already on there. So if you amend a 2013 ownership report, you essentially substitute the amendment for that past report, and it is not a 2015 report. So amendment is only appropriate if you're correcting information on an existing report. If you need to do a new report for the next year, you want options A or B.
And if you choose, of course, amendment, you would pre-fill. It says amendment to pending application. You would click F, and you would click this here, and you would put in that file number for the report that you'd like to amend. Nature of respondent, please, of course, choose the option that best describes, the nature of the respondent on which you're filing. Permittee is never the correct choice here. Permittees do not file biennial ownership reports. Okay. Facility ID numbers.
Right. You're going to be filing a report in connection with a certain licensee. It's going to have one or more stations. Just pick one of those stations, FAC ID, and put it in there. Another pro tip is that you may make your life easier if you keep using the same lead facility ID on all the reports for that licensee. It's just another, as you're going through the reports visually, it's nice to see the same thing there.
Okay, and as we touched on this briefly, initial data on form, new blank form, I think that's self-explanatory. Pre-fill from earlier filing, and you would put the file number of the biennial ownership report that you've previously filed, and of course amendment if you're looking to amend a previously filed report. Now I'm going to skip over to what we have, a prepared licensee report we'll take a look at. Hopefully this will work here. And as I mentioned before, our information from account maintenance was pre-filled here, and see, you can't edit. So again, I'm trying to make that a habit. I think it's a lot easier to just get in the habit of checking account maintenance before you do anything else. You see here we have FCC Registration Number. This gets pre-filled by using this Edit FRN function, which is all the way down at the bottom here. And here we would put, of course, our FRN and the password. If you need help generating an FRN, registering for an FRN, you would go through CORS. That's where you can take care of that. There's a helpful link right there to help you go through that process. And we'll return.
This is my first opportunity to deliver the most important message of the day, which I'll deliver several times, which is that FRN consistency on ownership reports is crucial. So what we have on that page is the licensee's FRN. Everywhere that licensee appears on an ownership report with an FRN, it must be that FRN. Do not use multiple FRNs for the same entity. Do not use multiple FRNs for the same person. And that goes, and what really becomes a little bit tricky from your perspective as stations and practitioners is that goes for any report on which the entity or individual appears, which means sometimes you will need to coordinate with other stations or other licensees if you've got people or entities in common, even if you sort of view it as an unrelated ownership structure, even if those other stations are represented by other counsel or not represented. FRN usage must be consistent throughout the ownership reports. We've said we expect everybody to coordinate to make sure that happens, and if it's not, it makes the reports hard to process, and we likely will contact you for amendments to fix inconsistencies in the FRN. So coordinate in advance and make sure it's consistent.
Yeah, thank you. So we've filled out, of course, pre-filled section 1, nature of respondent. We pre-filled from the Preform page. Now here's our question about fees. Licensee reports are the only ones that need to, fees are required. All non-licensee reports, you'll be selecting either fee exempt or you can select other and then explain, that you're filing a parent report.
Most people hit other and say parent report or something like that in that little box. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
No fee is required for amendments, but if you are doing the validate and resubmit option, you still need to pay the fee. That question I get a lot. Okay, question. This is our as of date, question 5. For this filing period, it'll be October 1, 2015. Don't try to put any other date in here. And please be mindful of the format, month, day, year. Again, that's something that actually does trip some people up if they get a validation error regarding the date. Okay, and we've already done our purpose. Now we're moving on to the stations. Did you want to, is there something you wanted to address?
Well, this is the part of the form where you list the licensee and its stations. Since this report is actually being filed by the licensee, it is the respondent. So here, the licensee in Section 1, Question 7 matches, if you scroll up, the entity in Section 1, Question 1. And importantly, the FRN is the same. So on a licensee report, the FRN will be the same as the respondent. And, in the forms, you want to list all stations that are licensed to the respondent. Don't list permits. The entity that appears there must be a licensee. Cannot put a parent entity there. And the licensee FRN obviously has to match the licensee name. The FRN you report has to match the name you give for the entity or person you're reporting generally.
And for our new filers, this is our first introduction to subforms. Subforms are used quite a bit in the 323. So this actually first field here was pre-filled for us. If you recall on that Preform page, we did put a lead FAC ID number. So this was pre-filled for us, but we needed to add a copy in order to add this station here. So we would hit add copy. Another thing that's very important when you're in subforms is to save and save often. And you can do the validate, which will scan for errors within the subform, as we see that there are no errors.
In Form 323, save and validate are your friends. If you don't think you should hit it or you're unsure, just go ahead and hit it.
Yep.
Will it, when you validate, correct the city of license, for example, because that should be I would be and that happens to be one of my stations.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I don't think the validate function is checking for.
No, it checks the
errors
match
here, right?
between the FAC ID and the call.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Okay.
So, yeah, so that's
Just be careful spelling it.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just close that back to. Okay. Respondent type here. You're going to pick the option that, of course, best describes the entity on whose behalf you're filing this report. Of course, you have a number of options here. For us, we're an LLC. LLCs are not listed here. So what we did is picked other. We clicked the button for Exhibit 2, and here we just put description, nature of respondent, which is what the question is seeking, and we just said that we're a limited liability company. Again, save often. There's no auto-save. You can validate and then go back to previous to bring us back to our form here. Okay. So now we're getting kind of into the meat of the form. This question, of course, is asking about contract information. We're not going to go too much into this. Again, it's asking for us to list all the contracts that we are required to file with the FCC pursuant to 3613. Again, this is where we're using the subform function. We've put in some information. We can do an add copy to add more entries, doing some save and validate and move through.
733016 provides details about what kind of documents need to be filed. The 2-second version is it's organizational documents for entities, certain credit agreements, network affiliation agreements. Those are the biggies, but there's a specific list and criteria set out in 3613, so that's what you should refer to.
And capitalization, again, we're faced with a subform here. This is where we would fill out the pertinent information. This is again only filled out by licensees and those with a de facto control over the licensee. Here we're an LLC. This question is not applicable to us.
Generally, that question only applies, aside from what she said, it only applies to for-profit corporations. If you're not one of those, it's not applicable.
Okay. Now 3A, I'm going to be spending a lot of time here. Let me open this up. I think the main takeaway we have here, again, this is where we're listing all individuals and entities that have a attributable interest in the respondent. This is very important for us. This first subform here must be the respondent. Whoever is listed here must match who is listed, who's up here. So we need to be matching the names, the FRNs, with everyone who's in this first subform. And again, there will only be one respondent listed in question 3A, and that again is your first subform. So everybody else listed underneath would be other interest holder. You'll only be selecting respondent once. Again, relationship type, we're choosing the option that, of course, is most correct for us. Here we're the licensee. We're listing the licensee. Licensee is the respondent. We're clicking the licensee button. Again, FRN, we're making sure all our FRNs match, and we're using that consistently. We're not an individual, we're an entity, so we're clicking NA, because we can't provide gender, ethnicity, and race information. And we're completing this section here. Did you want to make a comment about that?
No, the licensee and the respondent subform is a little bit confusing. For the respondent subform, just put 0 for the votes, equity, and percentage, because it is the respondent, and that makes sense. Also, if you scroll up a bit, the best positional interest to select there is owner. That's just what people do. These questions are a little strange with respect to the respondent, so that's the best way to answer them.
Okay, thank you. We have a very simple organizational chart here where we have parents. So we've listed the parent next. So we have the parent next. We have other interest holder, because again we're only one respondent, and we've chosen, of course, entity with an attributable interest, because this is not an individual. And we have, of course, the FRN of the parent, and when we do where the parent is reported on other forms, like its own parent form, this FRN here must be, again, provided on that parent report. So now we're going into our individuals. We have, Mr. John Smith. Of course, he's an other interest holder. Here, of course, we would pick person. We've decided that, he's an officer of licensee LLC, and he has provided an FRN for us. And, of course, we've then filled out his race, gender, and ethnicity issue or information. And I think this is a good moment to briefly address special use FRNs. Again, they're only to be used for individuals, not entities, and you can only use it after good faith and diligent efforts. You're unable to secure an FRN for an individual. Either they failed to provide you with the information necessary to register an FRN on their behalf, or they have failed to do so themselves. So please, make sure that you've really given it a good try to secure an FRN for them before resorting to special use FRNs. If you do need to report a special use FRN, please make sure, again, like regular FRNs, that you do so consistently. That's extremely important. So if a special use FRN is reported on the 2015 report, please make sure it's the same one that was used on the 2013 report.
And if that individual appears on other unrelated reports, got to coordinate with consistency there.
Yeah, same rules apply. And I think at this point, Jake is going to touch on some other issues.
Sure. Couple things. Obviously, this goes without saying, but in the subforms, the FRNs and the individuals must match up. So that must be Jane Thompson's form. The FRN given must be Jane Thompson's FRN. When you're reviewing your reports, really make sure this is right. And we get a lot of reports where people have not gotten this correct, and get a lot where sort of duplicate FRNs are in this list. Obviously, duplicate FRNs don't make any sense, so that's clearly a sign that something has gone wrong. I wanted to talk about 3 issues that have come up that are tricky. Number 1, the reporting of trusts. Trusts are entities. They are not individuals. Each trust with an attributable interest in the respondent should be listed separately in response to Section 2, Question 3A. Should obtain and use its own FRN and use it consistently. And each trust must file its own separate report as a parent. That report should identify the trust as the respondent, and each of the trustees, beneficiaries, need not be identified. Trustees are the ones that hold the attributable interest for purposes of reporting here. Second, insulated partners and members in partnerships and LLCs. Briefly, the idea of insulation is that in certain cases you'll have a partnership or an LLC that has a bunch of members with votes, and they may invest in all sorts of things, broadcasting, oil companies, whatever. And in certain cases, what a partnership or LLC will do will be to insulate certain members from attribution. What does that mean? That means that the member or the partner is completely uninvolved with the broadcasting business in every way, and the documents for the partnership or the LLC say that. And this is done because if that person was attributable, there might be a violation of our multiple ownership rules, so they need to pull them back from attribution so the entity can hold, the partnership or the LLC can hold the interest. Here's what comes up. If you are insulating one or more members or partners that would otherwise have votes, then the votes that you report for the remaining people or partners or members must reflect how the voting works after insulation. So if you are insulating somebody who would otherwise have 50% of the votes, those votes go somewhere. One of the other members, one of the other partners, your agreement may specify it, they go somewhere, and you've got to report, if you want to put it this way, effective voting interests, because then we lose track of who really has votes here, and that's a very important thing to do. And the third one I wanted to talk about is very tricky, and there's not a good solution to it, although it doesn't come up very often, and that's the concept of a jointly held voting interest. This doesn't come up much, but basically it's a situation where there's a voting interest and 3 people hold it jointly, not that they each hold a third of it, but they sort of jointly hold the interest together and vote it together, you do things with relation to that interest together, and it's hard to capture that. What do we want you to do? List, in response to Section 2, Question 3A, list each of the voting interest holders separately, provide the FRN and all the required information for them. In the positional interest field up there, please select Other and put something like jointly held interest there. And in the votes section for each of the people, report the full voting percentage that is jointly held for each of the people. That way you can at least flag that there's a jointly held voting interest and how it works. It's an imperfect solution to a difficult problem, and that's the best way to proceed. It does not come up much, but it can come up sometimes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And if we've added one other individual, of course, to Section 3A, Jane Thompson, and we proceeded as we did with John Smith. We're moving on. Question 3B. This is asking if they're making us certify that anyone who's not reported on this form are indeed not attributable. You should really be answering yes. If you're answering no.
If you're answering no, you must go back to square one.
Moving on, I know that this is a section that can cause some frustration for people. This is question 3C. This is asking us to list whether the respondent or anyone with an attributable interest in the respondent also holds an attributable interest in a broadcast station or a newspaper in the same market as defined by our rules. There are 2 ways we can complete the information here, provide the information either using, again, our subform I'll open this up. Subform option, or of course we can do doing a spreadsheet. Now, I just want to make a few comments about the spreadsheet. If you do need to download a new template, it can get a little trickier. It's actually something that we do have some questions on. Make sure that you right-click and you do Save As, because otherwise, I won't open that today, but you get this screen, which isn't very helpful for you for filling out your spreadsheet. So we do have instructions here, but I think sometimes it can be easy to miss in the heat of the moment. So right-click and Save As. If you're still having trouble validating your spreadsheets, please forward it to Form 323 at fcc.gov. Sometimes there's like an extra space somewhere that is just causing a lot of headaches, and we have folks here at the Commission who are really good at rooting out those problems. So if you're really stuck on it, don't waste too much time. Send it to us, and we'll see what we can do.
Couple things here. Obviously, this is for reporting other interests that are held by people who are listed in response to 3A as having an attributable interest in the station. That means that each of the names listed here should match one of the names in response to question 3A. You can use the form or use XML. It is permissible to use multiple XML spreadsheets, and I remember I had done that where you could make XML spreadsheets for particular entities and upload them as needed and relevant to the report. That is fine. Also, it is okay to create an XML file that just lists all of the interests held by a given individual. In that case, there'll be, for every report, there'll be some of those interests that you put in the XML file that will actually be listed on the report, but it is okay if you want to take sort of a modular, quick approach just to put them all in one report and one XML file and upload them. We're not worried about that duplication at all.
Okay. Just moving on, 3D, of course, is asked if anyone that's listed in 3A, and I don't want to steal Jake's joke if you want to.
Well, it's the old joke in the industry. It asks if any of the individuals listed in response to question 3A are married, related as parent-child, or related as siblings. Married means married to each other, just to be clear. That confuses people.
Here we have two individuals, John Smith and Jane Thompson. We've made them siblings, so this is how you would fill this out. Of course, we would save and validate after completing that. This is the attribution exemption question. I don't know if you want to.
This is a concept it's similar in some ways to insulation, which we discussed earlier. But this is a situation where an entity, usually it's an entity that does a whole lot of things besides broadcasting, has a bunch of officers and directors, and some of the officers and directors really are not involved at all with the broadcasting business. You're allowed to seek an attribution exemption for such officers and directors. That means that they're not attributable and they're not reportable in Section 2, Question 3A. However, here you have to list who they are and their title and provide an exhibit for each one as to why they're not attributable.
Okay. Question 4 is asked, of course, this is the instructions state. This is for respondents other than a licensee. We're going to touch on this when we briefly go over our parent report. We're filing a licensee report, hitting not applicable. Number 5 is organizational chart. Would you like to really
Yeah, so as it says in big letters, licensees only licensees should be including an ownership chart. If you go back real quick to the last page, there is something we've handled this informally, but the form says, the second line, it says, including the licensee and all persons or entities that have an attributable interest in the licensee. You do not need to put the persons on the chart, just the entities on the chart. So that's important. Again, only the licensee report should contain this. No parent report should have an ownership chart, and it goes without saying that the licensee's ownership chart should be complete. It should go from the licensee and include all entities with attributable interest. As a general rule, the purpose of this is to guide people who are going through the reports. It's to have a chart in one place where if somebody's looking at the reports, they can say, aha, this is how the ownership structure works, these are the entities. And so it defeats the purpose of having a guide if people are uploading ownership charts piecemeal throughout the reports. It's all got to be in one place. They also are not the place to provide any information that is not reported on one or more of the ownership reports. In other words, this is a guide. It's not really reporting anything to us, and it's not an excuse for not disclosing something someplace else in one of the ownership fields that needs to be there.
Right, so we have,
One other thing is in ownership charts, it's sort of similar to the XML files. Sometimes it's easy to make an ownership chart that if you've got a multiple licensee entity that has all the licensees and the whole ownership structure on it, you can be over-inclusive like that. You can include the whole ownership chart for the entity, even though you don't need, obviously, the other licensees' information on there. That's fine. And it's even helpful, quite frankly, to do that.
right, so we've provided two ways in which you could provide that organizational chart information. One, of course, is doing it by text here. And again, we've described the structure here that our licensee LLC, is wholly owned by its sole member parent LLC.
So yeah, and this is a good point. If you are a licensee that has no parent entities, please include an exhibit that says that. If you're a licensee that only has one parent entity, this is fine. If you're getting sort of much beyond that, you do a chart because the text just gets too hard to follow.
Right. So we have here. This is how you, of course, could create a chart. And I think the CDBS only allows you to upload in PDF format. You can create something here that again illustrates the ownership structure of these licensees. We'll just go back here. So we've worked our way. So if you're a licensee, just remember you should not be clicking NA. So we've completed our certification. We've provided our information here. And we're going to save. And again, save and validate early and often. Okay, and we've actually been successfully validated. Now we're just going to go quickly back to our menu here and open up our parent reports.
Yep.
Okay. Now we're in our parent report. Again, we've put since we're using one CDBS account, I think the first thing we did before we even filled out our parent report is we went back to account maintenance, and we've updated this information here for the parent. So that information is correctly pre-filled here. Of course, we went to edit FRN, and we provided the FRN for the parent, which, of course, this is the same FRN that is listed on the licensee report where the parent is reported. And of course, nature of respondent here, we're not the licensee, we're an entity with an attributable interest, and we're not filing a licensee report. Click fee exempt report. Of course, we can also click other and type in parent. And although we are the parent, we're filing a parent report, we still provide the licensee name here and the licensee's FRN.
And we've got a question about this item on the form that has come in, and I'll just clarify. I said list all the stations here. All the stations that are required to file the form. So who files these forms? AMs, FMs, TVs, Class A's, low-power TVs. If you have FM translators or TV translators, you don't need to list them here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just going through, I think one of the, 3A, and of course we have the parent LLC, we're the respondent, we're an entity, and of course our FRN here matches what is up in Section 1, and of course what's also reported on the licensee report. And we'll just move down, of course, quickly to question 4, respondent's interest held. This is where the respondent, of course, other than the licensee, is reporting the entities that is directly below it in the ownership chain. So here, of course, the parent company has an attributable interest in licensee LLC. So we've used our subforms here to fill in the name of licensee LLC and the FRN. Again, our FRNs match. Okay. Saved and validated. And again, because we're not a licensee report, we're clicking NA. So we're going to save our report and validate. That's good. And if we didn't do it this way, we can we want to leave enough time for Q&A, but we could, if we had an error, we had a validation error, it would appear at the top of the report in red letters, in red text. If you do have trouble deciphering what exactly your error is, again, email us. Screenshots are great. So if you want to take a screenshot and email that to Form 323 at FCC.gov, that's really helpful for us to help troubleshoot your problems here. So we're going to do a quick mock file. So we're going to do file form. Click file form. Are we sure? Yes. Don't worry, we're in a different server, so we're not filing on behalf of these stations. And as you see here, we have fee payment. We're filing a licensee report. They have to file a fee. In order to proceed, you need to you can click. All right, is that right? Now, see, I'm glad this happened. This is actually a common issue. This will show up in a pop-up window, but we have our pop-up blocker on. So please make sure before you proceed that your pop-up blocker is off. So let's try this. Let's see if we can. Or something. I think we probably don't need to go through all. So make sure that there should be opening of a new window. If that doesn't happen, check your pop-up blockers, disable them, and try again. A few quick comments about fees. If you are paying by check, we do ask, give it a couple days and take a look in a CDBS, maybe actually more like a week or two. If you see that your report is not in CDBS, please send us an email at form323@fcc.gov with a copy of your generated Form 159. That way we can reconcile that 159 with the filed report and make sure, again, that it shows up on the public side.
More general advice, if you're filing by check, please do not pay by check. It makes it a lot harder for you. It makes it a lot harder for us. If you file with a credit card and pay with the credit card, your report's going to show up the next day and you're going to know it's there rather than waiting and panicking to see if the fee catches up and it finally shows in the system. Credit card is really what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. No, it's you don't want to have that panicked moment on December 1st or maybe even December 15th. Where is the reports that I filed and I worked so hard on. And also, I think it certainly helps us as we're going through the data. We want to make sure everything is there, and we don't want anything stuck in this fee purgatory, as I call it. So please, I think credit card is better, but if you're doing by check, try to be a bit proactive and let us know ahead of time so we can make sure we can reconcile everything. And sometimes we have to manually move everything over. Before we open up to questions, I think just maybe a few tips. Try to file early. As I think everyone, and certainly in the room, knows that the system gets overwhelmed around Thanksgiving, especially if you're uploading a lot of big spreadsheets. And we're going to touch on a few spreadsheet tips, filing tips as well. But please, if you can, try to get them in early. Also, if you're in CDBS and you see that something is happening that just doesn't seem right, you've been doing these things for years and CDBS is not acting the way you expect it to, let us know. We really rely on you to let us know if there is maybe something going on the technical end of things. So please don't hesitate to pick up the phone or give us again an email shoot us an email at form323@fcc.gov. We don't want anyone really getting frustrated or struggling if, again, you're getting a validation error, you can't figure out how to get around it and correct it. Let us know early. So file early and let us know if you have any problems early is the big takeaway I want to give to you. Again, check our 323 website. I think it's really good to take a look at our answers to frequently asked questions. Again, email us at form323@fcc.gov. And we're also going to be opening up a phone line closer to the start of the October 1 filing window. I think that phone line is particularly helpful for our really new filers. We'll be posting that 800 number on our website probably early next week. We'll go through some other tips. Right?
Yeah, a couple just pro tips. One I already mentioned, which is when you're naming the form, when you're first creating it, give it a name according to convention so you can find it later more easily. Copying and pre-filling. We went into that a little bit. If you're doing a pre-fill, that's in the Preform where you can hit that button that says pre-fill and put the other file, the other file number in there. You can do that only if the other report has been filed. If you don't have the other report having already been filed, then you would use the copy form function in the CDBS account main menu. They both really do the same thing. They make a new form filing that imports a lot of the data. Think about using these functions in a way that makes your life easier, and this will depend on sort of the nature of the licensee and entity you're filing for. If they've got a big list of stations, use the copy and pre-fill that allows you to not have to type in that list of stations all the time. If it's a small list of stations, maybe use the copy and pre-fill to make it so you don't have to type in the 3A information a lot of the time. You will really save a lot of headache if you just take that 5-10 minutes to think about what strategy here will make it easier for me to do this. And I see all of these reports that come in where there's these there are these errors in them, and it's clear that they haven't done that. The station lists don't match up, and I wonder why to myself, because if you got this right once, you could have just copy, and had it all set. So think about that. Really make your life easier. You're going to file a lot of these, so. Correct.
Yeah. Right, so,
Oh, sorry, yeah. The pre-fill function, again, you can only use that for reports that have already been filed, but it does not matter what CDBS account they were filed from. Once they're filed and in the system in CDBS, you can pre-fill that data. If you're using the copy function, you're limited to copying forms that are in the same CDBS account. That's a good point.
yeah, and it doesn't matter what their status is, whether they're pending, valid, or
Right.
filed, if you can still copy from them.
If you are copying forms, upload exhibits and XML files to the form before you copy it, because those will track over and save you needing to upload the same XML file multiple times. As we all know from experience who've done this, that can take some time. So if you can do it once and then copy it over, that is much more useful than doing it a bunch of times. And on copying and pre-filling, the good news is that it allows you to sort of submit duplicative data or similar data a bunch of times very easily without having to rekey anything. That's also the bad thing about copying and pre-filling, because if you get it wrong the first time you do it, you're going to end up submitting the wrong data over and over again. So as a general rule, everything needs to be 100% accurate on any report you filed. In particular, if you're copying reports, make sure you get it right in the one that you're using as the quote-unquote template, because you don't want to have to file that many amendments to get it right. So there's a little bit of danger to copying and pre-filling, but if you just use care to proofread the first thing you're using, you'll be all set. And I wanted to address, we had another question that had come in during the presentation. There was no natural place to address it, so I'll do it here. This event is covering Form 323, which is filed by commercial licensees. If you are a non-commercial station, you do not file Form 323. You file Form 323E. And similarly, Form 323E is not on the same filing schedule as Form 323. Form 323 is filed during the same window by everybody. Form 323E is filed on a rolling schedule based on a station's license renewal date. So you'll need to figure out based on that schedule when you file. But it's a different form and it's a different timing.
And a question did come in via email. We will respond to you directly. Thank you. Unless we have it. Is there any other questions from our...
Has anything else come in?
No?
Nope.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Oh, we'll wait for the mic so our friends on the webcast can hear us.
Test.
Can you pre-fill from a BOS as opposed to a BOA form?
Yes, that will typically work, but of course the BOS form has less information on it, so what will happen to you in that situation is either that none of that information will come through, or the information that will come through in the copying process will be unreliable. So make sure that when you do that, you fill in those details correctly. And don't rely on, when you're doing a copy and pre-fill, just generally don't rely on the accuracy of that process in that situation.
And just to confirm, on the ownership chart, you're only concerned with entities. We don't need to list individuals.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, well, if there are no questions, certainly this is not your last opportunity to ask questions. You can find us on, again, Form 323 at fcc.gov. Again, check the answers for frequently asked questions and common filing errors, too. I think that might be a nice little refresher before you dig in. Best of luck, and again, you reach out to us at Form 323 at fcc.gov. Thank you very much for joining us, both those in person and those on the web. Thank you.